"Go away," said my mother-in-law, Catherine, in a very unfriendly way. When my husband got a job overseas, Catherine decided I couldn't stay in the house anymore, so my daughter and I had to leave. We didn't have anywhere else to go, so I went to the park, holding my 2-year-old daughter, feeling confused and lost about what to do next. Suddenly, police officers surrounded me. "Please come to the station," one of the officers said. It was raining heavily, and I was cold and shaking. I followed the officer to the police station. When I got there, someone I expected was waiting for me. "My name's Emma, and I'm going to be 35 this year. I met my husband Bob at work, and after a year of dating, we got married. When we got married, I stopped working, and 2 years ago, our daughter Lily was born. Right now, I live with Bob, Lily, and my mother-in-law, Catherine. We used to rent a place, but after Catherine's husband passed away and she started having trouble with her knees, we decided to all live together and bought a new apartment. We thought about buying a house, but because Catherine's knees aren't so good, we figured it'd be better to live somewhere near public transportation. Buying an apartment was cheaper than a house back then, and it has an elevator, which makes things easier for us. Catherine also liked the idea of the apartment, so we put some money down and got a loan that will pay off over 35 years. Bob's job often involves traveling or moving to different places, but after we bought the house, we were told he wouldn't have to relocate anytime soon. However, he still travels a lot for work, about once a week to other states. Having a 2-year-old daughter, I feel really stressed when Bob goes away on these trips. At first, Catherine, my mother-in-law, was helpful, but now she doesn't pitch in with taking care of Lily at all. Instead, she makes more work for me. For example, she leaves dirty dishes lying around after eating, and she doesn't even bother to rinse cooking utensils, which makes them really hard to clean later. Even when I ask her to at least rinse them, she just says sorry and promises to do better next time, but she doesn't follow through. I noticed something strange recently. She rinses the dishes when Bob is around, but not when it's just me. At first, I thought it was okay since she sometimes rinsed them, but now I think she's doing it on purpose to make things difficult for me. It's not just about the dishes either. Sometimes she'll ask if I need anything from the store, and when I say no, she'll later say she actually did need something after I've already come back. This happens a lot. Considering Catherine's knee problems, I try my best to help her with moving around, but my willingness to assist has been decreasing over time. Catherine's behavior started not long after we all started living together, and it's been happening for years now. When I talked to a friend about it, she said, "That sounds like she's bullying you. Why don't you talk to Bob? I think he might help." But I worried that if I talked to Bob about it, Catherine, who doesn't have any other family, might end up in a care facility. So I thought it might be best for me to just put up with it. However, one day, something happened that made me reconsider. That day, I was planning to drop Lily off at my parents' house. They always enjoyed having Lily over and suggested I stay the night too. I wanted to, but I felt uneasy about leaving Catherine alone at home. So after a short chat with my parents, I decided to head back to the apartment where Catherine was waiting. When I got there, I realized I had left my keys at home, which left me feeling worried. But then I remembered that Catherine was home, so I decided to ring the intercom to get inside. I pressed the button and waited for her to answer, but there was no response. I wondered if she had gone out, so I waited outside for a while. But even after waiting for about 2 hours, Catherine didn't come back. It was getting dark, and I was getting worried. Just as it was getting dark, another resident returned, and I followed them inside when they unlocked the main entrance. I was sure Catherine was at home because she rarely went out at night. So I pressed the intercom button outside our apartment, but still there was no answer. I waited by the door for a while, and then I heard a faint sound from inside, which meant Catherine was there. I tried the intercom a few more times, but Catherine didn't come out. Feeling defeated, I decided to stay at a nearby motel for the night. I planned to go back home when Bob returned from his business trip. When I told Bob what happened with Catherine locking me out, he was understandably upset. But Catherine just brushed it off, saying she might not have heard me because of her age. I could tell she was smirking, though. I was relieved to be back inside and grabbed my keys to pick up Lily from my parents' house. After talking to my parents about what happened, they offered me comfort and told me I could always come back to stay with them if things got too tough. Their words brought tears to my eyes, but I quickly wiped them away before heading home with Lily. For a while, things were okay with Catherine, But then, unexpectedly, Bob's transfer to another country became permanent. He asked me what I thought about it, but I couldn't give him an immediate answer. Considering the potential stress it could cause Lily, I decided it would be best for her and me to stay in the US. Soon after we decided I and Lily would stay in the US while Bob went to Europe, he had to leave. He was worried about us, but he was so busy with work that he didn't have much time to think about it. So it was just me, Lily, and Catherine at home. But as expected, things went downhill with Catherine once Bob left. On a stormy day, when it was unsafe to go outside, Catherine dropped a bombshell on me. She suggested that Lily and I should move out now that Bob was gone. "Excuse me, what do you mean?" I asked, shocked. "Just what I said. I think it would be better if you and Lily found somewhere else to live. I'll take care of things here. I just don't feel comfortable with strangers in the house. It would be best if you left right away," Catherine said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've always tried to make living together with Catherine as good as possible. I've treated her like family, even though we're not related. But to Catherine, it seemed like Lily and I didn't matter much at all. I was thinking about going back to my parents' house when Catherine suddenly said, "Why don't you just leave already?" Before I knew it, Lily and I were kicked out of our own home, just as we were, without even a chance to gather our things. No matter how hard I knocked on the door, Catherine wouldn't let us back in. I felt lost and confused. I carried Lily through the pouring rain to a nearby park. There was a shelter there that I hoped would keep us dry from the rain. Ideally, I would have gone to a motel or gone back to my parents' place. But I had left my wallet and phone inside the house. I felt helpless as I sat in the park, trying to figure out what to do next. I'm not sure how much time passed as the rain poured down. I was exhausted and cold, and I started to doze off. It was dark already, and even though it was summer, the cold was harsh, and I worried that Lily and I might get sick. As bad as things were, it seemed like the only option was to walk to my parents' house, even though it would take about 3 hours. As I was thinking about what to do next, I noticed two lights coming closer through the rain. They turned out to be police officers. I thought they might be able to help us, but before I could approach them, one of the officers called out to me, "Are you Emma? And is this little one Lily?" I was surprised they knew our names but replied, "Yes, that's us." Then the officer said, "Please come to the station with us." I wondered why they wanted us to go to the police station. If something was wrong, urged by the officer, Lily and I got into the patrol car. We were freezing from being out in the rain for so long, but the officers had brought big towels for us. "You might need these. We've got some spare clothes for you at the station," they said kindly. Curious about why they knew about us and why we were going to the police station, I asked, "How did you know where to find us?" They replied, "We'll explain everything once we're back at the station. For now, just try to relax." Exhausted, I soon fell asleep and woke up to find we had arrived at the police station. As I followed the officers into the police station, I was surprised to see Catherine and my uncle there. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" I asked. He explained, "Bob got in touch with me. He thought you might be having problems with his mom, and since he's overseas, he asked me to keep an eye on things for him." According to my uncle, Bob had talked to him about this before. He said Bob wanted him to keep an eye on things since he couldn't be there himself. My uncle had seen us in the rain earlier today. He had thought about taking us in himself, but he thought Catherine's behavior was too extreme, so he reported it to the police. That's how the officers knew where to find us. Catherine had also been asked to come to the police station. She sat on a sofa, glaring at me, seeming confused about why she was there. "Why do I have to be here? My knee hurts, you know." If Bob were here, none of this would be happening, Catherine argued. But the whole situation had come about because Bob had asked my uncle for help. In the discussions with the police, it seemed like there could be legal implications to the events. So I was advised to think about hiring a lawyer. "An attorney? That seems like a big step." "I just locked the door, nothing more," Catherine protested. But my uncle intervened, pointing out that what she did was serious. Throwing me and a little child out in heavy rain isn't something that can be easily forgiven. He also clarified that I was actually the rightful owner of the house. Catherine was surprised, insisting that Bob, as the head of the household, should be the owner. But she was mistaken. My uncle, who works in real estate, had helped us get a great deal on a condo, and Bob had suggested putting it under my name. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now I was grateful I followed Bob's advice. Following my uncle's guidance, I decided to hire a lawyer. The lawyer explained that it would be tough to evict Catherine, so the best option might be to place her in a care facility. I immediately called Bob to update him. He hadn't expected things to escalate like this and said he wanted to come back from Japan to sort it out properly. He also mentioned that he was considering putting Catherine in a facility, unaware of the current situation. Despite being at the police station, Catherine seemed unconcerned as she casually snacked on some crackers. Since I couldn't go back home with her, I decided to stay at my parents' place until Bob returned. He was due back in a week, giving me time to figure out our next steps. If Bob didn't support me, divorce seemed like the only option. I regretted not seeking advice sooner. A week later, Bob returned from Europe and was at the house with Catherine. So I moved back home from my parents' place. Bob had to go back to Europe soon, so we needed to talk about what to do next. I heard some things from Emma's uncle. Is all of that true? Bob asked Catherine. It's all lies. I haven't done anything. Emma's plotting something to evict me. Catherine stubbornly denied any wrongdoing and accused me of scheming against her. Bob, who I thought would support me, seemed to be considering Catherine's side. I see. So do you have any evidence to prove Emma's plotting something? Bob asked Catherine. Evidence? No, of course not, she replied. Then Bob turned to me, asking, Emma, do you have any evidence? I hesitated, admitting, to be honest, I've been so busy with work I haven't been able to keep an eye on things. I'm not sure who to believe. I handed Bob a voice recorder I had with me. What's this? He asked. It contained recordings of Catherine's hurtful words and actions, capturing moments when she not only kicked me out but also often insulted me. When Bob played it, he heard Catherine saying awful things like, "You're such a worthless wife. I wonder why he even married you." Catherine quickly tried to defend herself, claiming it was taken out of context and just a one-time thing. But as the recordings played on, it became clear that her verbal abuse was a pattern, not just a one-off incident. Bob's hand trembled with tension and anger as he listened to the recordings. Catherine looked guilty as the truth sank in. Mom, what is this about? Bob demanded an explanation, but Catherine stayed silent. If you won't answer, then I have to believe this is all true. And if it is, I need to protect Emma and Lily. You understand that, right? Bob's anger was evident, something I hadn't seen in all our years together. Catherine, seeing this side of Bob for the first time, looked frightened and couldn't say a word. After many discussions before Bob's return to Europe, I made it clear that I couldn't continue living with Catherine, especially with Lily around. Bob seemed to agree, leaning towards placing Catherine in a care facility. However, Catherine strongly opposed this, making the discussions complicated. Despite her objections, I decided to sell the house. So you can't stay here anymore. If you don't want to go to the facility, you'll need to find somewhere else to live, Bob told Catherine. She resisted the idea of selling the house, but it was necessary for our plans. Lily and I had decided to move to Europe. Bob regretted not being more present for his family and wanted to be there for us moving forward. Although I was unsure about living abroad, knowing Bob would be with us made me feel better. Plus, it would be good for Lily to experience life in Europe at her young age. Selling the condo, which still had a mortgage, was our only option. If we didn't sell it, Catherine would have to cover the mortgage, which she couldn't afford on her fixed income. Considering her future, it was important for someone to be there to assist her. Despite our efforts, Catherine refused to move into a facility, so we had to forcefully place her there. I'm sorry, but I have to head back to Europe. Could you take care of any procedures needed here? Bob asked before leaving. With help from others, I managed to finalize Catherine's admission into the facility. The staff at the facility kept me updated on Catherine's condition, but it seems she's struggling. It would be one thing if she was just feeling down, but she's been causing trouble for the staff and other residents. Before leaving for Europe, I visited her to check on her. But she lashed out at me, saying, "Why have you locked me up in this place?" She also complained to the staff about the food, the beds, and the other residents. When I apologized to the staff, they were understanding. "It's okay," one of them reassured me. "We're used to this kind of behavior. Just leave it to us. We'll keep you updated, and if anything happens, we'll let you know. So don't worry." Despite all the harassment I endured from Catherine when we lived together, I couldn't help but feel worried as I headed to Europe. Upon arriving in Paris, Bob met me at the airport and we went to the apartment we had rented. They say rents in Paris are higher than in Texas. But since Bob's company gives him a housing allowance, we were lucky to find a spacious and affordable place. The neighbors in our building are very friendly and have been kind to me, even though I don't speak French fluently. Just yesterday, a neighbor shared some wine and cheese with me. In return, I gave them some mac and cheese. I'm gradually learning French along with my daughter, Lily. I know there's a limit to self-study, so I've also enrolled in a language school. There are many Americans there, many of whom, like me, are new to France. I've made some friends and am really enjoying my life in Paris. Back in the States, I always had to worry about Catherine, which often prevented me from fully enjoying outings with friends. But here, I can indulge in leisurely lunches just the way I like. The only concern right now is Lily. She's still too young for kindergarten, as kids here usually start the year they turn 5. I hope she picks up enough French by then. Fortunately, Lily seems to be catching on pretty quickly. I'm thinking of getting a job once Lily starts preschool. Bob says he's okay with me staying at home, but living in Paris has made me want to explore more opportunities. Seeing how ambitious and confident people are here has ignited something within me. I've become friends with a waitress at a nearby cafe, and she hinted that there might be a job opportunity for me there. The cafe is popular not only among the American community, but also with many locals who are learning English. There might be challenges ahead, but since coming to France, Bob and I have been communicating much better. I feel more confident in expressing my feelings, and I believe that no matter what happens, we'll face it as a family. Right now, I feel happier than